who wants to sum up everything leading to World War I so far? Nobody? Savannah?
There were a lot of alliances because when two people got in a fight, it caused like 8 people to automatically be in that fight.
Right.
Japan was really angry with us. So when they attacked us, we attacked them back.
Allison, you want to add to that? I'm really enjoying knowing all your names. For some reason this semester, all of your names just snap very quickly. It's usually very rare that it happens this early. Wilson, what do you think? Savannah was on the right track. By the time we get to 1914, Europe has devolved into armed camps. Each one trying to one-up the other. And each one trying to get protection from the others through series of alliances with other nations. If we're attacked by Germany, you and I will go to war with Germany. If Germany is attacked by England, then Austria and Hungary will come in. So we have this whole intricate series of alliances. It's like stacking up dominoes. To make matters worse, since the turn of the 20th century, we've had this arms race in naval ships. So naval ships are getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and more guns and more guns and more guns. And basically, you have this huge buildup of military forces. And all it's going to take is one thing to happen. It's going to come from a place that nobody expects, because it is considered the armpit of Europe. It's Eastern Europe, and it's a place called why did it do that? It's a place called Serbia. Well, now that's really annoying. Here it is. Let's go. So, these alliances that have been formed are the Triple Alliance, also known as the Central Powers. This is Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. They're the Central Powers. And we have the Triple Entente, which is known as the Allies. This is England, France, and Russia. They all have alliances. You go to war, if Germany declares war on us, we'll jump in and help you. Same with Germany. If we are attacked by one of the Triple Entente, then we will go and fight them with you. All right? Now, what it was meant to do is it was meant to be a failsafe that Germany is not going to attack France, because if they attacked France, they knew who else was coming in. They knew that what? Russia was coming in, and they also knew that England was coming in. Now, if you think about it, Germany is surrounded by France and Russia. So Germany is going to be contained. So Germany, you would think, would not do anything like that. That would not be smart for them to do. Into the picture, the heir to the Austrian throne, Archduke Franz Ferdinand. He is on a goodwill mission to one of his nations, one of the nations that are allied with him, or basically I should say allied. They are they're under the control of Austria. And while he is there, he is in Croatia. And while he is there, he is assassinated by Gabriel Princip, who's a member of a Serbian terrorist organization called the Black Hand. Now what happens here is rather humorous, because what happens is the Black Hand had all decided that they were going to go and they were going to fan out on where they knew Franz Ferdinand's trip was going to take him. And when they saw the opportunity, they were going to shoot him. Well, what happens, earlier in the day, one of the members of the Black Hand, not Gabriel Princip, is going to see Archduke Franz Ferdinand and try to shoot him. His driver sees this and speeds off. Gets around the corner, goes a different way, and lo and behold, their plan is ruined. Gabriel Princip is going to be a little upset. He didn't get to shoot the Archduke. So he walks into a restaurant, gets a sandwich, and as he's coming out of this restaurant, eating his sandwich, he sees Franz Ferdinand drive by in the back with his wife and the back of the car down. So he runs out, gets his gun, and shoots him. And then he disappears. Now, the Crown Prince of Austria has been assassinated. Austria tells Serbia, because they know who this is, they know that it's a member of a Serbian terrorist organization, that they have 1 month to turn over the man who shot Franz Ferdinand. And if they don't, they will declare war on Serbia. Now, you might think, well, it's kind of rough. You've got all these other situations going on here. You know, you've got all these other coalitions. That's kind of risking it all for one person. In this area, between 1906 and 1913, there had been a series of wars. Very little wars, but wars nonetheless, that were going to shift power between Serbia and Austria-Hungary, and the whole Eastern European area. So this is kind of nothing new. It's the same old, same old. However, something else is going to change in this situation. What occurs is Serbia now is going to be backed by Russia. Serbia and Russia both are Orthodox Christian nations at this time period. Orthodox Christian nations. Now, what's the difference between Orthodox and what we consider Christianity today? Prior to the Reformation of the church and the rise of the Puritan church, Anglican church, if you're a Baptist, all those things that come from that, there was what church? What was it? There's what? Catholic church. There was a Catholic church, all right? So then you have the split that happened with Henry VIII, Martin Luther, in the 16th century. Prior to that, there was a split even before that between a Western church and an Eastern church. The Western church goes on to be the Roman Catholic Church. The Eastern church is the Eastern Orthodox. And what they split over is the whole thou shalt not have any graven images issue. Okay? Right? And the Ten Commandments. Now, Catholics, you go to a Catholic church, what do you see? Who's Catholic in? What do you see? You walk into a Catholic church and hanging from in front of the altar is what? A cross with the statue of Jesus, okay? So the Orthodox Christians would say, no. That is against the Ten Commandments. That is a graven image. Thou shalt not make any graven image. That's what God was talking about. Therefore, you guys are heretics. Okay, boom, there you go. So what happened is they say, no, that's not right, and they split. So what in an Eastern Orthodox church, what you would see is paintings. You would not see statues. All right, now you're thinking that's kind of crazy to split. Yes, it is, but nonetheless, it is a binding issue here. Russia sees Serbia as little brother. Okay? So little brother is told by Austria, you have 1 month to give us this guy, or we are going to declare war on you. You have 1 month, or we are going to declare war on you. Well, Serbia doesn't know who Gabriel Princip is, can't find any members of the Black Hand, and once the month is up, they're like, we don't have them. So Austria says, great, we're going to war. We're going to beat the living crud out of you because of this. Because you assassinated our prince. So what happens now? Once that happens, Austria-Hungary attacks Serbia. Serbia then has Russia come in, declares war on Austria. Austria has an agreement with Germany that says if we're attacked by Russia, Germany will come in. So Germany declares war on Russia, and Italy comes in as well. Now, in addition, to make things even more exciting here, Russia, of course, has an agreement with Britain and France that if they are attacked by any of these guys, they're going to go to war. Follow? Are you confused? Good, because this is all a cluster, you know what? It's a mess. The United States says, whoa, we are not getting involved in this. This is not something we're interested in. We are not going to get involved with it. However, we've got some problems. Although we are not the leading shipping company or shipping nation in the world, we are close. We are an industrial powerhouse. We are not a superpower. We are not a superpower, but we are close. We say we are neutral. We are going to trade with anyone who is willing to come and get their goods. You come over here and you get the goods. Come over here, you pick them up. All right? And you pay cash. Germany, come on over. England, come on over. We'll take it. No problem. Take your money. Problem is, who's got the most ships? Who is a world naval power? England. So England comes over and gets all of our stuff. Germany comes and gets very little bit of our stuff. So this doesn't look very good for us because it kind of looks like what? That we're favoring one. Are we really favoring one? No, not really. But are we? Yeah. Why? Because are you going to like the person that comes and buys $10 million of your goods every month? Or are you going to like the guy that comes and buys $100,000 every 3 months? Which one are you going to like better? $10 million guy, right? So as the war goes on, this British-United States friendship is going to grow even closer. And one of the problems that occurs is that England, as the war goes on, is going to start running out of money. Going to start running out of gold and silver. And as Wilson is heading towards re-election, businessmen tell him, if you do not allow the United States to make loans to England, we're going to go into a depression. And if we go into a depression, we're going to be in a depression the election year for your second term. Is that a good thing for a politician? Most important thing for a politician is re-election. Is he going to be able to get re-elected if he's in a depression? No, not going to happen. So Wilson allows the United States to make loans to anyone. And really, who are we talking about? England. We're really talking about England. They're the ones that are coming to us. Now, England is going to set a blockade around Germany. So a lot of the goods that we are shipping, and things that we are willing to ship to Germany, are going to get affected by this blockade. In some instances, there's going to be some loss of life of Americans. There's going to be some destruction of ships. This is a popular cartoon from the time period. You got Uncle Sam here with John Bull, and you got the Kaiser over here. You can tell he's got a little pointed hat. And he's got a stick here. It says England's blockade rule. It says American shipping, neutral commerce, and neutral commerce. These little babies crying and pointing at John Bull. John Bull says, "I'm trying to hit that guy. I'm trying to hit the German, but unfortunately, the United States is getting beaten up." And it says Britannia must be careful how she rules. She waives the rules. Okay, because she rules the waves, and we're supposed to be neutral. We're supposed to be neutral in all elements. And there are some issues that kind of infringe on our neutrality, but because they're slight and England is the side we're kind of leaning towards to win, we're okay with that. We're like, okay, yeah, just try to do better. Now, when President Wilson became president, Woodrow Wilson became president, he made our good buddy, William Jennings Bryan, the Secretary of State. So, yay, he finally made it to the executive branch. It only took him 3 times and losing the presidency 3 times, and now he's Secretary of State. Now, in Wilson's cabinet, everybody was pro-England. They were pro-British. This didn't seem to bother anyone except for William Jennings Bryan, because he says we're supposed to be neutral in thought and deed, and we're not going to do that. I'm going to resign. He says, I'm not going to, if the United States' goal is not to be neutral in all matters, we are going to be drawn into this war, and that's not something that I want a piece of. So he resigned. Economic concerns I already told you about. Now, innovations during the Great War. There's Snoopy. Snoopy is hunting down his dreaded enemy. Who's his dreaded enemy? The Red Baron. Baron von Richthofen. The greatest German ace ever. He was known for flying the Fokker DR-1, the triplane. He was an avid hunter. And he used the same methods of hunting prey animals as he did pilots. He would stalk them from on high. He'd come in with the sun in the eyes of the people he was hunting and then attack them. Airplanes at first were very rarely used. One of the major problems with them is that they originally had their guns mounted here on the fuselage. What's the problem there? They hit the propeller and shear the propeller off. So what they had to do is they created what's called an interrupter. So what happens is that it would shoot short bursts and shoot it when the propeller was horizontal. So while it would go like, and they were able to do it that way. Prior to that, you may have seen it beforehand. There's full pictures of it. It actually required somebody to stand up, and they would be mounted on the top wing. Parachutes were very rare. They hadn't been thought of yet. They just kind of hoped that if you were shot down, you could get low enough to the ground and jump out. I'm not joking. I'm not joking. Anything thinks I'm joking. They're not going to see much use during World War I. There was a movie that came out with James Franco about maybe 10 years ago called Flyboys, that they had to make the planes more like jets to actually be interesting, because these things barely went like 120 miles an hour, fast enough to get off the ground. And we're used to jets flying around like that, and airplanes, it's just not interesting. So they had to kind of, sexy it up. I'm sure it was successful. Von Richthofen would be shot down. He's shot down, he survives, but something happens when he crashes. He loses some of his visual ability, and as a result, he's never the same, and is shot down again. But he is going to make a name for himself as the Red Baron. Another innovation is the submarine. Now, submarines at first are not going to be seen to be very important. They're kind of seen as an aftermarket. Because really, what could a submarine do to a major dreadnought-class battleship?
Go under and shoot a missile.
Well, they don't shoot missiles underwater at this time period. And they're not really submersible. What they are is, they're really not submarines that we think of today where they go underwater and they stay underwater forever. They're kind of like light boats that you just drive on the surface, and then when you see a ship in the distance, you would sink to try to escape it. They're going to grow in support as the war goes on, after the Battle of Jutland, which we'll talk about in a minute. What would happen is these ships would stake out supply lines or convoy lines, and as people would come across these lines, they would identify whether or not that was a friend or foe. If it was a foe, they would surface, they would announce to the ship, hey, we're going to sink you. Give time for the ships to get people off of the ship into lifeboats and then sink it. Okay, well, what's the problem there? What's the problem there? What? They're not interested in supplies. They're not interested in taking the supplies. They're interested in starving the other side. So what's the problem there? No, usually not. Usually not. They've got machine guns, so they're not really worried about that. These things are exceptionally slow. Okay? They're exceptionally slow. If you are on a ship and you see a submarine and they stop you and tell you, hey, we're going to sink you, what do? Full speed ahead and leave them behind. So it doesn't really work. Okay? Another thing is these are very fragile craft. If they stop in front of your ship, they try to ram it, that ship sinks, and then you're dead. So what happens is very early on in the war, Germany says, forget that. We're just going to start sinking ships. We're just going to do what's called unrestricted submarine warfare. We are going to just sink everything we see that is not flying a neutral flag or a Central Powers flag. All right? So at the start of the war, Great Britain had the most, France had the second number of submarines, Russia the third, United States fourth, and Germany the fifth. They're really not, their new technology, they're really not seen as something that is very important. You know, haven't really found their niche yet in warfare. But, as I said, after Jutland, that all changes. So Germany blocks Great Britain. When Germany blockades Great Britain, they put, the Imperial German Embassy puts in every single United States newspaper a notice. This notice is, notice, travelers intending to embark to the Atlantic voyage are reminded that a state of war exists between Germany and her allies and Great Britain and her allies, that the zone of war includes the waters adjacent to the British Isles, that in accordance with formal notice given by the Imperial German government, vessels flying the flag of Great Britain or any of her allies are liable to destruction in those waters, and that travelers sailing in the war zone on ships of Great Britain or her allies do so at their own risk. All right? So if you were to go somewhere on a British ship flying a British flag, you could be sunk. All right? Now, Germany promised that they were not going to try to sink any, or they were not going to sink any ships that were not seen as being military ships. All right? So like a cruise ship. Are they going to sink a cruise ship? No. They're not. We're not going to sink a cruise ship because that would be wrong. That would be mean. We're not going to do that. Is that obviously carrying war material? No, it's not. People on a cruise, we don't want to do that. And think about it at this time. If people are going to go to England, how are they going to get there? Are they going to take planes? No. They're still going to go by boat. So, On May 7th, 1915, the HMS Lusitania, a British ship flying British flags, a passenger ship, a luxury cruiser, Titanic, think of Titanic, that type of ship, that type of luxury, is going to be shot by a submarine off of the coast of Ireland. By a German submarine. May 7th, 1915. On it were 2,000 civilians. 132 of those were Americans. Now, Wilson is furious. He demands that Germany stop sinking ships unannounced. Germany responds, this ship was carrying war material. Okay. England says, no, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. No, we wouldn't do something like that. What's that? It sunk in 30 minutes. How long did the Titanic, which sunk a couple years before, take to sink? It took about 6 hours.
Really?
Yeah. Why?
That's supplies.
Did you know what was on this ship?
Supplies.
Ammunition. Nope. Boom. Exploded. Now, what happened with the United States in 1898, Spanish-American War with the Maine? Remember the Maine? What? To hell with Spain, right? And we went to war, yes? Okay, the USS Arizona. We haven't gotten to World War II yet, but the USS Arizona, what happens? Pearl Harbor, what does the United States do? You should know this. You've all taken history in high school. What?
It's sunk.
Arizona gets blown up, attack on Pearl Harbor, we go to war. We're going to go to war here, right? No. No, the United States is ready for war. Theodore Roosevelt says, bully! Ready to go back. Wilson says, no, we are not going to go to war. He says, sometimes a man is too proud to fight, and it is not necessary for him to fight to prove that he is right. To which Roosevelt says, that's the damnedest thing I've ever heard. But Wilson refuses to go to war.
I was going to ask what Roosevelt said.
Yeah, what is Roosevelt going to say? Yeah. It's the damnedest thing I've ever heard. A man too proud to fight? Never. Never. Germany promises that this was an accident. Promises it's an accident. The next year, March 24th, 1916, the French ferry, the Sussex, a ferry, is sunk by a German submarine. Wilson says, enough is enough. You are going to stop this, Germany, or we will come in. Now you might think that, well, that's kind of like an idle threat. Why is that such a big deal? We'll see in a minute. And Germany issues the Sussex Pledge. It says, we will stop unrestricted submarine warfare. They don't want us to come in. They do not want us to come in. We will stop unrestricted submarine warfare. And we will stop ships. We will alert them. We'll give them time to get off the ships. And then we will sink the ships. Okay? Is that effective? No, it is not. But what do they not want to happen? They do not want the United States involved in this. Why? Well, very good question. Warfare has changed. Now remember, the United States did not come in until 1917, so I'm going to paint you a picture of what war looks like between the Spanish-American War, that splendid little war, and the 16 years it takes to get us to this. And the one major word that you need to know is industrialization. Remember at San Juan Hill, everybody was still using rifles. Now they have this thing called the machine gun. Instead of boom, 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 it's Battle of San Juan Hill, a mass charge up a hill would be slaughtered by a machine gun. When we get to World War II, I have a great example of that. But what happens here is in the first Battle of the Marne, which is a dividing line right here in the river, neither side is going to be able to knock the other out. The Axis, wrong war. The Central Powers is not going to be able to knock the Allies out. The Allies are not going to be able to knock the Central Powers out. Because there are so many bullets flying across the ground, they only have one option, and that is to dig down. And it becomes trench warfare. So instead of having a battle that goes and seizing the initiative and defeating the other army, or as we did in 1301, in which everybody followed the old Napoleonic rules where you walked up, you knelt, you fired, the next line advanced, they knelt, they fired, while the first group reloads and fires again until you get to bayonets and you stab. There's no way you can get that close. So what happens is it devolves down to trench warfare. These series of trenches that people are able to dig into and live for months at a time. Now, to make matters worse, what happens is you would have artillery on one side that would shoot up and then try to come down into these trenches. That's the only way you can kill the opposing side's soldiers. And what would happen is they would fire these, and fire the artillery, and when the artillery would fire, the men on the other side that aren't being fired on would advance. What the problem is because this is no man's land, it is machine guns, it is barbed wire. Germany is going to violate the Hague conferences and use chemical warfare. They would use mustard gas, which is a chemical that once you breathe it in, it destroys your lungs. It doesn't kill you, but it renders you basically an invalid for the rest of your life. Now what the goal was is that this artillery would advance, like drop, 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 and then stop. So as the soldiers walked forward, they were following the explosions, try to take over the other trenches. And the downside is that it's not very successful. Neither side is able to take control of the other land. As a result, England comes up with a way that they can protect soldiers and have them get from one point to the other. And that is what they call barrels, we call tanks. So the tank is introduced. Why do tanks have treads?
Roll over trenches.
You have what?
So it doesn't like get stuck on anything.
Okay, what?
They can roll over trenches.
It can roll over trenches. What happens here is that as this part goes over the trench and it clears the trench, the weight's still back here, and because of the surface area that tread is on, it can go over the trench. Now, tanks were originally, you're a reservist, aren't you? What are you in?
Marines.
Okay, so you're the Marines? Oh, you're going to enjoy class statistics then. Okay. So what happens here is the soldiers would follow behind this tank, this armored wall, follow behind it, and then it would go over the trenches and then hopefully be able to get into the trenches, the soldiers be able to get into the trenches and capture them. The problem is this is brand new technology. It doesn't work. It doesn't work very well. They break down. The original treads are too small, so they have to make them bigger. If you've seen Indiana Jones on The Last Crusade, there's that scene with the tank. That's the type of tank that we're talking about. That is a World War I era tank. So England invents that to try to change things. Now, The longest battle in the history of the war occurs in World War I. It is the Battle of Verdun. It is February 21st through 18 December 1916. Germany realizes they cannot knock out the Allies. Their plan is to shift their forces from an eastern to a western front. They're going to go from fighting two wars, one with Russia, to fighting one with fighting on the eastern front. Shift from fighting the eastern front to the western front. They're going to go against England and France. Now, the reason they wanted Verdun is much like at the Battle of the First and Second Battles of Bull Run in the Civil War, is that there's a strategic rail line there. Who controls the rail line would be able to get supplies quicker. So their goal is to try to get that. They want to try to knock France out. Russia is on the eve of revolution. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But they are undergoing a civil war, or about ready to undergo a civil war to overthrow their monarchy. They want to try to starve Britain out. They want to try to get Britain so low in supplies that they will pull out of the war. Problem is, by the time this battle comes to an end, Germany realizes that they do not have the resources to defeat the Allies. Now, not the largest battleship engagement in the war, that'd be the Battle of Leyte Gulf in World War II, but definitely the largest battleship engagement in World War I occurs at the Battle of Jutland. Germany ships versus the Allied ships. I'm not going to ask you the questions of how many ships either side have. I want to give you the total scale, because what we've been doing is we've been building up to this since Alfred Mahan wrote Dreadnought, History of Sea Power on World Control. No, what is it? Dreadnought, History of Naval Sea Power. Okay, in this battle, the United Kingdom has 151 combat ships. That's 28 battleships, 9 battlecruisers, 8 armored cruisers, 26 light cruisers, 78 destroyers. Versus Germany, 99 total ships, 16 battleships, 5 battlecruisers, 6 pre-dreadnoughts, 11 light cruisers, 61 torpedo boats. In this battle, England, 6,000 killed, 674 wounded, 177 captured. They lose 3 battlecruisers, 3 armored cruisers, 8 destroyers. Germany loses 2,500 sailors, 507 wounded, 1 battlecruiser, 1 pre-dreadnought, 4 light cruisers, and 5 torpedo boats. Now, what does all that mean? Battleships are expensive. This war has been going on so long that neither side has the money to rebuild these ships. They don't have it. And what they get out of it. Who won the Battle of Jutland? Both sides claimed victory. Who won? Well, looking at the numbers, it looks like Germany. Why? Because it was 6,000 sailors lost versus 2,500. But what happens is both sides realize that their battleships are too expensive to engage like that. And they're not going to do it again. Germany and England are going to start turning their attention to a smaller, lighter craft that gets the same results of sinking ships, but has less men, costs less money, and if you lose it, oh well, who cares? Yes?
Who was this battle between?
This is Germany and England.
What is the alternative?
Alternative is a submarine. So, In the United States, we have not gone to war. Have we picked a side officially? No. Have we picked a side unofficially? Yes. Our economic interests tie us to our good friends, our cousins, the British. So, in 1916, we are drifting towards war. Roosevelt, although he's not going to run for office anymore, starts clamoring for us to be ready. Wilson is going to tell Congress he doesn't think that he can prevent us from going to war. So if we are going to go to war, we need to be ready. So we run we start getting ready for war, although we are not actually going to start drafting anyone yet. All right? This leads us to the election of 1916, and probably the most humorous of all campaign slogans. Wilson is going to say, "Vote Wilson. He kept us out of the war." I burned my tongue on my coffee earlier, so I can see this. Pull it up now. Anybody have these Yeti mugs? Man, those things are hot. I didn't realize that.
I love those.
Yeah. I love having coffee that my wife gives me at home, and then by the time I get around to drinking, it's cool. This, not so much. What's funny here is we're going to go to war within 6 months of him winning. But he is going to officially be the candidate that kept us out of war. Now, the United States, when you take my federal government class, you will see that we talk about who you elect president. And we tend to vote for the person who keeps us out of war. All right? So, the Democrats renominate Wilson. The Republicans are going to nominate Senator Charles B. Hughes. Wilson's Peace Without Victory plan is going to lead the United States to overwhelmingly choose him again. He is going to campaign on this theory of peace without victory. We need a peace that both sides agree on, that we just put our weapons down and go home. Okay? Because a lot of people are saying, why did this really happen? A lot of people still now look, why does this happen? Why did this war start? 2 years ago, the 100th anniversary of the start of the war, there was a lot of newspaper articles. Why did we go to war? Why did we go to this war? Why did the United States get pulled in? Why did it happen at all? There's a whole bunch of things that pulled it together, and it's still something people still examine to this day. Rather interesting. So, yes, peace without victory. Vote Wilson, he kept us out of war. Well, January 21st, 1970, Germany realizes they cannot knock out England and Russia and France. They can't do it. The Central Powers cannot defeat they cannot defeat the Allies. It's not possible. However, the Allies cannot defeat them either. It's a stalemate. It has been for 3 years. Neither side can win. However, now they say, United States, they are getting close to coming in. If we have any hope of winning, we have got to we have got to end this war before the United States enters or is ready to enter. So on January 21st, 1917, unrestricted submarine warfare is announced again. They break the Sussex Pledge. They say, we're going to do it. Wilson says, we warned you this would not be good for you if you did that. And they said, yeah, we know. We know. But their goal is to what? Win before the United States gets in. And even when the United States gets in, it's going to take us a while to get ready, right? It always does. Because we start, we have an army, not a big one, not a standing army, And as a result, it's going to take a while for us to get that army. Do we have a Navy? Yes. As always, the Navy is ready to go. Why? Because of the nature of the Navy. Metal ships on salt water require what? Maintenance. And therefore, they are always kept in a high state of alert. Now, March 1st, 1917. The German ambassador to Mexico sends a telegram to the Mexican government saying, the United States is coming into the war. And when the United States comes into the war, Mexico, we want you to attack the United States. And when we win, we will give you back everything that the Americans stole from you. Okay? Remember in 1301, that's what Mexico looked like a long time ago. After Texas leaves, boom. After the Mexican-American War, we get all that. So back in 2007, Absolute Vodka put out this commercial, said this ad south of the border in Mexico. It says, in an absolute world, and it shows this picture. In an absolute world, Mexico would have all of that, and probably not be able to run it like they can't run what they have now. But in 2007, that caused a lot of problems because it made a lot of people mad. In 2000, okay, it's not that good. In 1917, it made the United States, especially the South, furious. Furious. You're trying to take away our land. You're trying to make a negotiation, because we find out about it, I should say that. It is leaked to the press, and it makes Wilson furious. Now, couple that with the Russian Revolution that starts on March 17, 1917. In the Russian Revolution, Tsar Nicholas II and his family are going to be overthrown by Bolsheviks, Marxists, communists, and are going to be slaughtered. Germany and Russia are going to sign the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, which ends hostilities between Russia and the Allies. So what happens now is all this over here that was warfare, that was divided up, shifts over here to France. They pull out of the war. Now, this is kind of like when this happens. By the way, who likes the movie Anastasia, the cartoon Anastasia? All the girls, oh, I love Anastasia.
It's a show.
Yeah?
Well, oh, there's Rasputin's right there. There she is.
The boy that Rasputin was, I can't remember his name, that Rasputin was famous for helping, right there. And if you want to ever look up something weird about a weird man who had just, I won't say his mystical powers, but he had some weird abilities to do things, look up Rasputin. Okay. But anyway, their family is slaughtered. Anastasia supposedly escaped. No, she didn't. 1998, they did DNA tests and discovered that she was part of the family that was killed and buried in a mass grave. Yes.
Sorry, who signed the treaty?
Russia and Germany. So now Russia is out of the war. Now everything that Germany and Austria-Hungary were focusing on the Eastern Front shift to the Western Front. So they're not fighting a two-pronged war anymore. They're fighting a one-front battle. On April 6, 1917, Wilson is going to go before Congress and ask them to recognize that a state of war exists between Germany and the United States. Congress agrees and issues a declaration of war. So we are at war. Now, why so long? Why all these things until Wilson finally made the decision? It was actually the fall of this family. Why? Because they were a monarchy. France, democracy. England, constitutional republic. Monarchy. Dictatorship, representative governments. For him, it's like, okay, it's a battle for democracy now. Now we're fighting a war for freedom. And that's what does it for him. And we go to war. Now, the first thing that we're going to do, because we can't automatically declare war and go to war with an army we don't have, the first thing we're going to do is we are going to pass the Emergency Loan Act of 1917, which is going to provide financial aid for our allies. We're just basically going to give them a blank check and we're going to say, France, England, what do you need? We will bring it to you. Now, to make matter, the problems here, though, is that in order for us to bring things to them, what must we get through in the Atlantic? Must get through the submarines. So the way we do that is through the Navy, which is ready to go, and their first task is clearing the shipping lanes so that our supplies can get through. Because what's more important, our soldiers or supplies getting through? Well,
As of right now.
okay, ultimately, soldiers, right? You want your soldiers to get through, because if your supplies sink, what happens? You lost your supplies. Your soldiers sink. What happens? You lose a tremendous loss of life. Alice.
I was just gonna ask, isn't England, like, don't they have a lot more money than us?
At this time, England is the financial powerhouse of the world. Okay. They've been fighting a war for 3 years. Just because you have money on paper does not mean you have money to spend. They're almost bankrupt. Not as bad as when we get to World War II. Because after World War II, what happens, the center of the banking world shifts from London to New York, where it stays today. There's always talk that it's going to go over to China because they think China is the leading superpower, but my personal opinion is most of China's numbers are cooked. Because, I mean, you look at what they're doing. I mean, they're building cities where nobody lives. And they're doing that. What?
So who's going to take over America?
No, I'm not saying anybody will take over America. I'm saying that China would surpass. There are people saying China's economy will surpass the United States. And it may. I don't think it'll last very long. So that's our first part. Give them money to get the things that they need and provide for getting there safely. Second is let's get our army ready. We need to get ready and over there. And the way we're going to do that is we pass the Selective Service Act, in which all males over the age of 18 have to go and register for the draft. So the first mission, securing the seas, is not going to take that long. In April of 1917, German submarines sank more than 870,000 tons of shipping. By January of 1918, monthly losses would never be higher than 300,000. So that's what? That is 9 months. By the next year, by the end of October of 1918, it was 112,000. So we're going to do our job fairly quickly and clear the sea lanes. Now, there's one group of soldiers that are ready to go, and that is General Blackjack Pershing and the American Expeditionary Force. They're still tooling around down in Mexico trying to find Pancho Villa. Did they find him? No. Wilson grabs him and says, "All right, boys, we're taking you on. We're sending you over to France. Go to war because you guys are ready." So let's send them over. They arrive. They arrive at the beginning of July, and you will remember from History 1301 the Marquis de Lafayette, who was a French general in the American army, who loved Washington as a father, and Washington, who did not have any children of his own, loved him as a son, kept in close communication after the war was over. In the same way that Lafayette and the French were there for us in our time of need, Pershing and the AEF would, on July 4th, 1917, once they arrived, march through Paris to Lafayette's tomb with people from the with people waving American flags from second-story windows, and then announce at Lafayette's tomb, "Lafayette, my friend, we are here to save you." Now, one thing that is going to happen that is not going to be done again in World War II is that because our forces came in piecemeal, we would, in this war, World War I, what we would do is we would send them in to fill holes in other units. Okay? So we would take the American Expeditionary Force and they would be integrated into French forces, into German forces, no, they didn't do that much, into British forces, okay, to fill holes. We did not fight as one unit. When World War II rolls around, we should make sure we don't do that again. We fight as our own army. Now, when they arrived, the Germans thought that we were going to be pushovers. We hadn't been in the war. We led a cushy life. They thought we were going to be pudgy. We were going to be doughboys, and that's what they called us because we were kind of like the Pillsbury doughboy. He pushes button, and pushes belly, and he goes, right? Okay, so that's what they thought. When we arrive, it's a completely different thing. Now, what happens in the United States that's different for our diet than what a French person or a British person consumes on a daily basis? We eat meat all the time. We eat corn. We eat beans. Our nutrition is fantastic. So as a result, the average soldier that goes to war is 6'1". The average Frenchman is 5'4". So when we go over there and we arrive, we are here. You know, the Frenchman said, "Oh my goodness!" And you can imagine all the girls, because you always hear about the French disease. All the girls are going, "Oh la la!" You know, because these guys are like this tall. They're used to their. That's what 5'4" right there, right? About 5'4". So it doesn't take long for that to get blown out of proportion. Now, here we go, Ethan. The first battle that the United States is involved in involves the United States Marines at the Battle of Belleau Wood. June 1st to 26, 1918. In this battle, the French general who commands the forces that the Marines are operating under is going to order a retreat. The United States Marine General, General James Harbord, says, "We didn't come over here to retreat." He says, "Marines, lay down." Marines lay down, and they wait as the Germans advance. They get within 100 yards, and he says, "Fire." And they fire, and they destroy an overwhelming numerical superiority of Germans. By the end of the day, through superior fighting, the United States Marines win this battle. Yes, sir.
But could you just repeat, like, who decided the retreat?
Sorry, what?
Could you repeat who
The
decided?
French general in command. So just because you have generals, you have like a French general who's in charge, and then you have the general of the United States Marines.
Okay.
So the French general, because they're French, run away! Run away! And the French, they run away. And Harbord says, "No, we're not here for that. Lay down." At the end of the day, one German, who was one of 30 who survived out of a total of 120 in his group, radioed, "We have Americans in front of us, and they are terribly reckless fellows." Scared. 90 others had been killed. At the end of this battle, the woods would be completely cleared. of German forces. At the Second Battle of the Marne, the German general Erich Ludendorff is going to try to divide French forces. So what he does is he launched 3 assaults. One, he tries to launch to try to make it appear that's where he's going to make a seize. Or he's going to make a run to try to seize Paris. The first is the Battle of Rheims, July 15th through August 6, 1918. And he's able to establish a salient, which is kind of like a bulge. So it go like that, okay? And it would stick out. It's hard to, it's where you concentrate all your forces. At the Battle of Chateau Thierry, 3 days later, the Allies are going to strike back to try to cut down this salient. And then at the Battle of Soissons, July 18th through 22nd, I want to make sure I get the captain's name right. Where'd he go? Captain Hunter Grant. How do you forget that? That sounds like a good name, Hunter Grant. Hunter Grant is going to come up with an idea. He says, hey, you know what? I bet we can trick the Germans. We can trick the Germans. We can get them to put their forces somewhere where they are expecting a counterattack, but we won't counterattack them. So what he does is he takes a dead American who had died of pneumonia. So, died of pneumonia, what? You don't have any signs, right? You weren't shot, you weren't killed, what have you. And they arrange for a jeep to be driven off of a bridge in an area that the Germans were about ready to take. So this jeep goes off a bridge, and when it goes off the bridge, they put his dead body in it, and they put around his wrists handcuffs with a briefcase. Inside the briefcase are plans saying that the United States are going to attack at a place they have no intention of attacking. The Germans fall for it, and as a result, they put their forces there. They know the Americans are coming. The Americans don't come that way. The Battle of Soissons, they attack a completely different area and knock out this salient.
Wait, who makes the plans?
The Americans make the fake plans.
So the other people.
So that the other people fall for it. And they do. So by 1918, Germany is on the defensive. At the beginning of the battle, or beginning of the war, there was a line that delineated France and Germany. It's known as the Hindenburg Line. It was kind of a string of forts. By September 26, 1918, Germany had been pushed back to the Hindenburg Line. They were pushed back to where they started. In the Battle of the Argonne Forest, it is the bloodiest battle in United States history. 120,000 casualties. 1.2 million soldiers were involved in this battle. Now, I'm not going to tell you who wins, because we'll come back to that in a second. November 11th is important. On October 29, 1918, the German Navy is going to mutiny. They had been infected with Marxists, and they had decided that they were tired of dying when their Kaiser was living in such opulence. So they rebelled, they mutinied, and this would spark a revolution that would ultimately overthrow Kaiser Wilhelm II, the ruler of Germany. So this brings us to the end of the war. Neither side was able to completely defeat the other, and Germany wanted to end the war before they actually started losing ground. They're forced back in the Battle of Argonne to where? The line they had at the beginning of the war. Have they gained any ground? No. Have they gained anything? No. As a result, Germany, England, and France are going to meet at a rail yard in Compiègne, France, and they're going to sign an armistice. And what is going to happen in this armistice is that there is an agreement that at the 11th hour, at the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918, see all the 11s?
Yeah.
Both sides will stop firing, and the war will come to an end. Okay? So when I said it ends on November 11th, why does it end on November 11th? Because that's when the armistice kicks in. Now this is important. This is important. We will come back to this. This picture we will come back to. Is 20 years we will come back to. Oh, this is a slide yet? What is that slide up there? Okay. All right, so now Wilson. Okay, I'm not going to talk about that. That takes too long. All right, so let's hold up a second. Don't go anywhere yet.